So I want to talk a little bit about identity politics. You hear that word thrown around, that term thrown around a lot lately, and it just sounds like another one of these corporate news talking points, but it's a little bit more deep-seated than that. If you're a Republican and you go to the voting booth and you see another Republican, you just go ahead and check the Republican box because you figure, hey, I'm a Republican, he's a Republican, wouldn't you like to be a Republican too? Sorry. You figured that, hey, they have my best interest at heart. Now, I've discussed ad nauseum that both sides of the House, the Democrats and the Republicans, they're bought and paid for. They're owned. You know, big money donors have corrupted our political process to no end. And I've illustrated on many occasions that nothing else is going to get fixed until that part of it gets fixed. Whether you're talking about better education or, Medicare for all, or stopping the wars, or just better foreign policy in general. None of this is going to ever get changed until you get the money out of it. Because that money influences the regulations and the laws that are put in place. And you, as a common American citizen, you don't have that kind of money to invest in a political candidate. So they're not going to do anything for you. Why do you think they go through all these fundraisers? Why do you think that they have all these big money donors? Because the political system is screwed up and they need... look, you go anywhere else, like France or England, and their election process is about 2-3 months tops. It almost seems like ours is a continuous cycle. We are already talking about the 2020 election. We're definitely talking about the 2018 election. That's a year and 9 months from now, 8 months from now. We're already talking about it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have it in the back of our minds at all times. What I'm saying is that it is a year-round process, and it is not the representatives' main point to do the bidding of the American people, their constituents. Theirs is to constantly be reelected so they can continue maintaining this job and to get corporate money so they can continue to do so. I'm talking about all this because when I'm talking to you right now and I do these videos, of course I'm talking to my progressive side, but I'm also reaching out across to the other side, to the Republican side and to the Democratic side, because Republicans and Democrats, they are fighting against each other, but what they fear more is the progressive wing. If you notice, when a Democrat is talking about a Republican, they have certain talking points that, oh, they're bad and we're good. But when you see somebody talking about a progressive, it's they're evil, and they're socialist, and they're Leninist, and they're communist, and everything has got this negative leaning tilt to it. They try to discredit them and make them seem like they're absolute loony bins for even thinking that progressive talking points make any sense whatsoever. The game is identity politics, and there are two teams, the Democrats and the Republicans, and we are caught in the middle. And as long as we are still playing this game, we're never going to learn anything. I'll give you another example of identity politics. Anytime somebody says, hey, you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, that means you're a misogynist because you don't think a woman could do the job. No. I'm sorry, but that's not even remotely close to being true. I am for voting for a woman, just as well as I'm voting for a man. I vote on policy. I vote on qualification. I don't vote for somebody because they're a woman. I didn't vote for Barack Obama because he was a black man. I voted for him because of the things that he was talking about, his policy points. Now, whether or not he actually implemented any of those, some of the things he did, some of the things he did not. He called himself a progressive. He was not. You know, God love Barack Obama. He had a silver tongue. And I could listen to him talk all day long in that sweet baritone. Go ahead, tell me, baritone. Well, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Seriously. Now, Michelle. Great ass. You know, Barack Obama could say anything, you know, and it was just, it's just smooth. I melt like butter on a hot muffin. But he was a corporatist, okay? We all voted for him on the hope and change. We voted for him because he was Democrat. And yes, I'm sure some people did vote for him because he was black. I mean, shit, I was so glad just to see that the black barrier is broken. I mean, that's great. But at the same time, you have to know who he is. I mean, he filled his cabinet from a list given to him by Citigroup. Okay? Right in the middle of the biggest economic crisis since the Great Depression, where the banks completely fucked over our economy. Epic corruption. And the first thing Barack Obama says is, I don't think we need to rehash this. I don't think there needs to be any prosecution. Let's just let bygones be bygones and let's fix the problem. Now, I'm all for fixing the problem, but the first thing he does is bail out the banks with trillions of dollars. I mean, there was a stimulus package that it was given to America to help stimulate Main Street's economy, but it was nowhere near in comparison to what he gave to the banks. And then he fills his cabinet with the corporate side of the aisle. He was, Geithner, straight up corrupt banker. Straight up. So, we can defend Barack Obama on some of the things that he's done, but some of the other stuff, I equate Barack Obama's politics, I know it sounds strange, but to Ronald Reagan. Corporate right down the middle. Every time. He was a little bit softer on social issues, but same time, Ronald Reagan talked about getting a pathway to citizenship way back in the early 80s. So he had some good social leanings too, but he was all about the corporate money, which is when all the regulations started to come off, which is when he started turning his back on unions and going for the corporate side, Ronald Reagan was giving corporate America carte blanche to, go ahead and move your jobs out of the country. Yeah, go ahead and put your headquarters up in some foreign country. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Put all of your income in some offshore tax haven. Yeah, go ahead and do that. And when it gets to the point where we really need the money, we'll let you bring it back into the country. But instead of paying the 15% corporate tax or the 35% income tax, we'll let you go with like 5%. Barack Obama did the same thing. Okay, so you tell me that Barack Obama also did, as a replacement to Glass-Steagall, he put in Dodd-Frank, which is basically a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. And all of those regulations that were put in place have slowly come off, as riders on farm bills over the next 7 years, on smaller, these insignificant bills that we didn't really pay attention to as Americans because we're so busy with the bullshit of everyday life. All these little regulations are tacked onto those, and they're just stripped away and stripped away and stripped away. So there's nothing left. Essentially, right now, we are right back where we were when George Bush was deregulating up to his eyeballs. Right now, we are back at around 2006. A couple more years of this, deregulation by Donald Trump and his team. We're distracted with every tweet, so the Republican House is just stripping away every regulation they could possibly think of. Got to let these banks make these money. What did Donald Trump say? Something like, "Oh, my friends can't borrow money anymore. It's not fair." His friends. Goldman Sachs, his friends. "Oh, Hillary Clinton, she's corrupt. She's all about the Goldman Sachs because she was out there giving the speeches." Well, who did you hire to your staff? I mean, who did you hire to your cabinet? Gary Cohn, CEO of Goldman Sachs? Your Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin? Look, I'm getting a little off topic here. What I'm saying is that identity politics don't work. Before the election, I had a lot of conversations with my family. And, as much as I gear these talks that I do to the progressive side, I also do it to the Democrats, but I'm also reaching out to the Republicans as well. Because I believe in my heart, as American citizens, as constituents of, this electoral process, we are closer together on things, on policy points, than we know. They put little wedge issues, gay marriage, women's right to choose. We use these as wedge issues that drive us apart. One of my favorite old phrases, I believe, I can't remember which king, it was an English king, but he said, I think it was Longshanks or Richard III. He says, "It doesn't really matter. We can always hire one side of the poor to fight the other." And that's what this is. We have two groups of people fighting amongst themselves, whether it be over gay marriage or Black Lives Matter or, women's rights or what have you. And the guys that are on top, the ones that are really doing the screwing over, they're laughing their fucking asses off. They think we're rubes and morons. And you know what? We're proving them right. When somebody asks me what I stand for, I can name right off the top of my head what I believe in. I believe that our education system is in the crapper. I believe that not just money, but just better teachers and more funding for these teachers. You hear Wall Street talking all the time about, how are we going to attract the big talent if we don't pay them the big money? Meanwhile, we pay our teachers chicken feed. They go to a 4-year college to become a teacher, and, they get paid just enough to get by. I believe that our healthcare system is wretched. We spend almost a quarter of our discretionary spending right now on healthcare, and we're getting piss poor healthcare because we have a middleman taking all the money. Big healthcare, national healthcare companies like Aetna and their ilk, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, the ones I'm talking about. These huge conglomerates, they take their cut before you get your health care. It is, when I say Medicare for all, they always fire back with, "We cannot have a government-run healthcare system." No. This is a misnomer. It's not government-run healthcare. It is government-funded, private healthcare. So your doctors are still your doctors. Your nurses are still your nurses. They don't just throw on a government jacket and say, "This is government healthcare." That's not what this is. It's government funded. They cut out the middleman. There is no more administration costs. Back before ACA was even implemented, it was anywhere between 25 to 50% of the amount of money you spent on healthcare went straight to the top of these healthcare companies. They call it administrative cost. If the government was to run this, it would be 6%. So 94% of every dollar, 94 cents out of every dollar would go to your health care, and 6 cents of it would go to the administrative. It's just fucking bookkeeping, people. Just bookkeeping. But instead, they have convinced us that we need these healthcare companies to take 25 to 50% of your insurance dollar and put it in their pocket. And our government, our representatives, are bought and paid for by them. They take all that money that they're raking from your premiums, and then they take little bits of it and they pay off their politicians, and then they walk away with a pot of gold. And you have shitty healthcare system. You cannot run a healthcare system that is geared for profit, because what happens is they collect premiums and deny coverage. That's the business model. The more coverage they deny, the more money they make. You cannot have a for-profit healthcare system. I am all for-profit car-making companies and refrigerator-making companies and house building and what have you, because you get the best product for the cheapest price. But when it comes to healthcare, you are denying somebody health to make a profit. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. You can see this. You can see through the haze to this truth. It's a government-funded private healthcare system. So you will continue to see your doctors and your nurses and your medical facilities. You will get cheaper prescriptions because we would be able to negotiate with the big pharma like every other country can, except for America. We pay twice the amount for less pharmaceuticals and less coverage. We pay double what every other country on the every other free country on the planet that has Medicare for all. We pay double what they have, and we have shittier coverage. When I hear that guy, what was his name? Raul Labrador, the congressman who said, Labrador. That was an unfortunate name. But when he said, people don't die because they don't have health coverage. And the crowd went apeshit. It's because it's 45,000 people a year die because they don't have health coverage. When Paul Ryan says, we want to make sure that everybody has health care available to them. This is a bullshit talking point. What he's saying is, you have the ability to buy it. You are free to buy it as an American, but you can't afford it. I can go buy a Ferrari, but I can't afford it. I'm an American citizen. If I wanted to, I could go buy one of the Virgin Islands. But guess what? I don't have the money for that sandy beach. Them saying you should have the ability to buy it. Yeah, honey, anybody can buy health insurance. But can you afford it? No. And now they knock out the pre-existing conditions. Oh, I'm sorry, the states can opt out of it. Well, if you were a state, what would you do? Would you pay for the health care? Or would you go, you know what? We're going to save the money. Just go back 10 years to see what was happening before the ACA. They all opted out of pre-existing conditions. Because why pay for something if you don't pay? Another progressive talking point is education. Higher learning. Right now, and I hate the word free. I hate the word free. Because it makes it seem like anybody who's taking something free is a freeloader. But your tax dollars pay for K through 12. Why not make it K through 16? This day and age in America, you can't get a decent job unless you've got a 4-year education, or at least a 2-year education post-high school so you can get some kind of vocation, whether it be in nursing or metallurgy, ironworks, electrician, being a plumber. If you want to do that, you still need some schooling. What if we were able to have this funded with your tax dollars? That means it's not free. Same thing with Medicare for all. It's not free. It comes out of your tax dollars. We pay quite a bit of money. Now, we don't pay the most. We're like kind of right in the middle in the pay scale for taxes. I believe France or, oh God, maybe it's Sweden. One of those pays the highest tax rate. It is hovering around 45, 50%. We are supposed to be paying 35%. Of course, if you're a corporation, you can hide your money offshore. You're not even coming close to that. There's so many huge conglomerates that haven't paid federal income tax at all for 10 years. Donald Trump sure as shit didn't. But we are not paying more than any other country. But we're not getting anything for our tax dollar. 55% of our discretionary spending goes right to the military. How much goes to education? 1%, 2%? How much goes to our infrastructure? 1%? They'll talk to you about Social Security and how that takes a big chunk. And yeah, it does. But at the same time, it's one of the most popular programs there is. And I'm sorry, but once you make it to 65, as far as I'm concerned, you deserve the break. You made it through 65 years. Not everybody gets to make it that far. We should take care of you. Just like I would hope to be taken care of when I hit 65. And any 20-something millennial out there, I'm sure right now you feel like, hey, the world's my oyster and I'm indestructible. But, come talk to me in another 40 years when you're coming up on that number. You're going to need the help too. You're going to need the insurance. You're going to need the Social Security. Some kind of buffer. Look, we right now are at a crossroads. Either we reevaluate what's really important, or we just keep going on this status quo. Because as far as I can see, the status quo is just going to lead us into oblivion. And it's going to get to a point where it breaks us. And we're going to have a physical revolt. I don't want that. You don't want that. We don't want to see 1787 come along and us whipping out the guillotines and chopping off heads. I don't want it to get to that point. But we need a political revolution where we get money out of politics. We get a constitutional amendment to get rid of it. Wolfpack.com, that is a wolf-pack.com. It's a great site to go to. You can volunteer and get involved in that. It's very important. But get money out of politics. Get in touch with, check out Justice Democrats. They are people that we are trying to get elected in Congress and in the Senate. Do not take corporate PAC money. They just take money from their constituents. We need to better our educational system. We need to pay attention a little bit more. We need to just get off of the damn cell phone, stop posting cat pictures. Look, do what the hell you want to do. I mean, please, enjoy yourself. But we need to be more informed. We need to stop spending copious amounts of money in a war that will never end. It will never end. We will be in the Middle East forever. 800 military bases across the country. We are bombing 7 countries right now. Barack Obama took 2 wars, and like the loaves and the fishes, now we got 7. We are funding a theocratic nation, Salafist Saudi Arabia. We are giving them weapons to bomb other countries. We can't even get clean water to Flint, Michigan, much less 3,000 other cities around the country whose water infrastructure is just crumbling. People turn on the water and it's filled with lead and brown rust. We can't even get clean water to our people. We can't provide health care. We can't give them proper education. We can't get them down a frickin' road without flattening a fucking tire from a pothole. Donald Trump is talking about infrastructure spending. He's talking about privatization, selling off those roads and bridges to big corporations. Well, you think you're going to have to pay a toll on those? I think so too. We spend money on things that we don't need because of security. We have given up nearly every last one of our rights on the Bill of Rights. And now we are fighting amongst ourselves over the First Amendment. We've given up all of our rights to privacy because of a little bit of security. What did Ben Franklin say? If you give up your freedom for a measure of security, you deserve neither freedom nor security. But we're scared to death because the mainstream media is constantly feeding this bullshit that they're out to get you. Who? Them. All of these points that I'm talking about, whether you're Democrat or Republican, you agree with me. I know you do. We just need to stop playing these political parlor games and really start looking at our elected officials, not for what their name recognition is, not for whether or not they're a woman or a black man. We need to look at them like policy points, and that's it. I don't care if the guy is orange, green, purple, male, female. As long as they are telling me their policy and it's matching up close to mine, and it can't be perfect. Nothing can be perfect. Nobody is going to absolutely agree with me on everything. Neither are they going to agree with you. But we need to find the one that best suits us. This two-party system is bullshit. We're fighting amongst ourselves and nothing is getting done. We have to stop electing our officials because of who and what they say they are and look at them on their record and their policy, because that is all that matters. Hope on the ballot does not mean shit. And Donald Trump saying he's going to do these things and turns around and does exactly the opposite, you ought to know right away that he's a liar and he's full of shit. We need to stop playing these political games and really start looking at what we can do to fix the problem, as opposed to arguing over petty bullshit. I love my country. I love America. I really do. There's no place else in the world like it. But until we can stop this and start talking to one another and stop burying in our heads in the sand and saying, I don't want to listen to you. I don't agree with you because you're a liberal. I don't agree with you because you're a Republican. I don't care what you have to say. I'm not going to listen. Until we get to past that point, we are never going to move forward. So either we fix the problem, do some self-evaluation, or we're going to be stuck in this mire forever. I'll leave it up to you. Hey, this is Antoinette from Transistor Rodeo. If you like what you saw here, please subscribe for more videos and content, and you can follow me on Twitter at Transistor Rodeo.